Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for a new episode of A New Go of New Home Sales. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthon, and joining me today is our CEO, John Lee, as well as a very special guest. We're welcome Michelle Simms-Reiter. Michelle is the founder and CEO of Strive Leadership Development, and John and Michelle actually go back way far. So we're going to give you a little bit of an introduction of Michelle and what she does now and the connection to John. So welcome to the show, Michelle. We're so excited to have you on.
Thank you, Anya, and thank you, John, both of you for having me today. I'm thrilled to be here. Yes, I am so honored to say that I have known John for many years, and I began a home building company in the middle of the recession. And it's not an easy time to start a home building company in the middle of a recession, but it ended up being one of the best experiences that I could have had. And I've learned some of my greatest lessons by doing that and going through that process. One of them being exactly what you're talking about, the building of relationships. And if I hadn't done that early on, that is what carries you through. And that's where your support is to take you to new levels. So I built a home building company with the help and support of lots of great partners, John and all of you guys as part of that process. And it was such a fantastic experience. So thanks for tying that together. And I love being here.
Yes, we'd love to have you on. And Michelle, before we kick things off, we would love to hear a life story of how exactly did you get here? So you already mentioned that you did start your own home building company, but can you take us back? What led up to it, and tell us what is it that you do now?
Yeah, thanks for opening that up. Actually, I've worked for a couple of large corporations. So a lot of your audience actually probably work for some of the larger national home building companies. And so that was my background, but I made some really great relationships and built some wonderful connections over that time. And because of that, when times kind of got tough, I was able to be pursued for new opportunities. And it was one of those things where it's actually kind of a funny story. I really wanted to have a home building company one day. And at that point, I was about, I think, 32 years old at the time. And at that point, I thought, I'll be, that'll be a retirement thing that I do. That'll be something I do down the road in the future, right? Maybe one day, little dream job. Not in the middle of a recession, not while I have a 2-year-old at home, not while I have a good paying job and I'm being offered something that who knows what will happen to it. That wasn't ever the story, but it couldn't have been more perfect that way. That's what made it so great, is just that leap of faith to jump in. And so we started a company. It was myself and one superintendent, 2 people running it, and I took no salary at the beginning. And over time, through the great relationships, partnerships, local people that we knew, we were able to build that company to, I think it was 54 people at the end. And we were building about 300 homes a year in our market. I'm in the Raleigh market. And it was such an incredible experience. And had it not been for the recession, it would have never been possible. So I am grateful for the tough times and what I had to learn and the relationships to getting me where I got. Who would have thought?
So that's interesting you say that if it wasn't for a recession and tough times that you wouldn't be where you are now. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think for most people, it's like, what are you talking about?
I know. And I use this so much when I talk to people now. Like, every challenge that you see is somehow a gift. It is somehow an opportunity for you. And that was a prime example of it for me, because we were at the time before the recession hit, it was a very tight market. All the nationals were in and everybody was gobbling up lots and getting market position. And when the recession hit, many of them kind of withered away. And it left a lot of the local developers kind of hanging, and they didn't know what to do. So we kind of began with one little community, and it was working and we were doing a good job. And before you know it, all the other local companies and people were reaching out to us, and we knew each other. These are people we've known for years through the HBA and through all the different relationships we've built. And they said, do you think you could help us out? And we said, you know what? We don't know, but we can try. Let's all stick together. And we did. And if it didn't work, we went back to the drawing board and we would decide what we all needed to do to make it work. It was tough times. So when you work together like that, you can come up with solutions. And then on top of that, we had trade partners who were also challenged during that time. They were doing far less work than they had been, and they were struggling. They were laying off. And when you watch people you know in your own community struggling and suffering like that, it just makes you all want to come together and come up with a solution. Let's figure this out. And that's why I say, if we weren't in tough times, I don't know that it would have ever been an opportunity that it would have been brought to us to resolve that way and come together as a community. And so because of that, it just made us love our community that much more. And I know John was a big supporter early on for us because we were doing charity events and we were helping raise money for this cause and that cause. And it rooted us even further into our own community. And I truly believe that is why we were successful. There is no question in my mind.
I was really amazed how, you were starting up when everybody was kind of shutting down, like you're saying. I mean, you're really in the midst of the Great Recession. And I saw the energy that you had, and you still had your priorities of you're still doing charitable work while you're still starting to build a company. And I actually really admired how taking a small company and, this is a male dominated industry, I mean, for decades. And you actually took something that was an obstacle and you turned it to an advantage, because I saw how you took Terra More Homes and you really position it toward women buyers from a women's perspective from the features and the lifestyle. And you were really able to work from a grassroots pulse of the community level and turn it into a success.
It was such a great experience to do that together with all the people I did it with. We had our kids involved. Every employee brought their kids too. It was just a true family affair, and it extended to all of our trade partners and anyone else that we knew. So that's one of the biggest examples, and one of the biggest things I teach with my clients now is these relationships are so key and so valuable that the stronger they are, the stronger you can be and everyone can be as a result.
And you know who your true friends are in the tough times. I've been in this industry for 20 years. That relationship is so key, because when you're there for them, they'll be there for you later on.
Can you give our listeners a couple of pointers on relationship building? John and I just came back from IBS, and it was a crazy, crazy week. And we saw so many of our peers, so many of our clients at this show. And I think most people do feel intimidated by that environment, and it can be very overwhelming, and especially if you don't necessarily know people when you go to those sorts of things. So from a relationship building perspective, can you give us maybe 3 quick tips when you go to a networking event? How would you approach that networking? How would you approach that relationship building so that we're not just looking down and playing on our phone the whole time?
Yeah, it can be so easy to fall into, but that's a great point. And I think it falls into exactly what we were kind of joking before we started here. But number one is we're all people, and we're people before we're business. And while this might be the reason we all came together to this one place, we're all humans who came from far away, most likely, have lives outside of here, have the reality of the real world that we're all dealing with every day, trying to figure it out. So number one is just really remembering that we're going to connect on a human level first before anything else can even happen. My second point is be a good listener. Bring yourself and bring your 2 ears and your 1 mouth and listen to what they say, so that you can really remember and connect with this person on an entirely new level. And then from there, it is really about building that relationship. And for me, at least, the best way to do that is, how can I help you? What is the value I can bring for you? How can I help you get where you want to go? What is your goal? I want to understand that from people so that I can be a part of helping them. Maybe I can't do it, but maybe I can connect them with someone else who can. So I'm thinking constantly about, oh my gosh, you should talk to Anya. Oh, John, I know somebody over here who would be perfect for you for what you're trying to do right now. So I love being able to just help and serve other people. And I think when you kind of remember those 3 things, you just can't go wrong.
Yeah, I think it's got the next level of emotional intelligence when you flip it from I'm the center of attention and how can I benefit from this interaction to the other way of how can I help you? How can I connect you to somebody else? And I think that is the key. That is definitely one mistake I see so many people make when they go into this interactions is it's like all about me, me, me. And it's especially if you're in sales, I think sometimes that's desperation sort of can,
Yes.
people can sense it and be turned off by it. But if you approach it from that perspective of how can I help you, I think that really puts people at ease and changes the dynamic. So I love that.
It's very human nature to feel that way when you go to an event like that, because you are kind of anxious and you know the pressure's on to perform and do whatever it is you're supposed to accomplish. But that's usually what brings out sort of that me, me, me atmosphere. And so it's almost easier when you just think, oh, it's not about me. I can take that pressure off.
So Michelle, you mentioned a couple of things earlier that made you successful during a recession in your company, one of them being involved with community and charity. So one of the themes that we see in marketing that's emerging very strongly right now is that community-based marketing. So with all the changes with cookies and the way we can track and the way we can reach people is changing. So a lot of the marketing gurus out there are really preaching that community-centric marketing. Can you talk to us a little bit more about how were you able to involve community in the process of building a home building company? What can home builders learn from that, and how can they potentially implement some of those practices as well?
That's a great question. And I think especially in your business and in today's marketing, social media, strong marketing opportunity that's available for everybody, that was something that actually wasn't as big at that time when I was at least at the beginning of building my company. So at that point, it really was about face-to-face and holding events and bringing the community together. And today I feel like that's even easier to do because you don't even have to do that at a site necessarily. You can do that together with your supporters and with your community through social media avenues and plenty of other opportunities that still serve them, educate them, help them follow your cause, support your cause. And I think when you do that, it shows what you stand for as a company, and it really reflects your character. And people don't just buy your product, they're buying the culture of you and the culture of your people and what you stand for. And I think that is what creates your brand. And it's so important to really exemplify that and talk about that.
As you talk about that, the value and the culture, I can think of one specific individual that I know right now who's actually happens to be our client, and it's Elena Mani. She definitely embodies that, right? Like, you know what she stands for and you know what her company stands for. So you immediately either attracted to that or you're repelled, which, some people may think like, oh, why would I want to repel somebody? But you definitely do want to repel wrong people from yourself. So yeah, that definitely resonates with me. And Michelle, as we're heading into 2023 now, I think a lot of economists agree that the year is not going to be quite as rocky as we initially expected, but we're certainly in for some turbulent times. People are certainly not lining down to our model homes anymore, and we want to buy it to give it to us. So if you could give our home builders just a couple of pieces of advice, having to build your own company through the recession and what a recession it was, through 2008 and all of that mess. What are some of the biggest things that you would concentrate on as the business owner right now to ensure that your company not only survives, but thrives at the end of it all?
Yeah, such a great point. I think there's a few things that I'd love to point out from this. And the first one is you do have to have a strategy. It's okay to pivot. Just because you've been doing something this way for whatever number of years doesn't mean it has to continue that way. So it's a really smart decision right now to look at your strategy, decide what's realistic, decide how you can get more creative, more resourceful, do things differently now. And we've gotten in a lot of bad habits over the last 3 years. And I don't even really mean bad habits. They were exactly the right habits for what we needed to do then, but they just may not be the ones that serve us now. And that goes across all boards. We love to pick at certain departments or maybe certain people who've gotten into them, but it isn't true. Really, the whole industry has gotten into different habits, and we all need to be willing to look at ourselves to say, what do I need to do differently now? What are the basics that I need to get back to that maybe I kind of got away from for a while because I had to, because that made sense? There's nothing wrong with that, but it is time to relook at it to decide what makes sense now. And then the next thing I love to say is really look at your culture. Everything that you were just talking about is your brand, and it is who you authentically are as a company. And you want to attract those people as your buyers, as your partners, as your employees, like really solidify what you stand for as a company. And probably the last thing I will say is don't forget to have fun. Like, nobody's attracted to a company that's no fun. Not the workers, not the people who work for you every day and need to come into the office or on Zoom, however you meet. And certainly not your customers. Your customers want to have fun too. So just don't forget, this is an experience for all of us. So let's enjoy it. We're on the planet for just a short period of time. Have a good time while we're doing it. It's a great industry.
100%. Great point. So actually at this year's IBS, at the sales rally, the think differently was the whole theme. So you're right on the money there. So, and Michelle, when you say, don't forget to have fun and make it fun for your employees and make it fun for your customers. Well, right now, obviously cost is a big thing that we're all cost conscious, right? We're trying to figure out a way to cut costs. So can you give us a couple of pointers of how can we implement fun without necessarily spending a fortune on it?
That is a great point. I think that you can have fun when you decide that fun can be part of your culture. And I think it's about asking the right questions. And I think when we've been so profitable for so long, and it's easy to just go carte blanche and have all kinds of celebrations, you think you have to keep doing it that way. But that isn't really what connects people. What connects everyone is getting behind something. Maybe it's helping to support a charity, like we talked earlier. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's doing something for your community that everybody comes in and gives their time, and it doesn't cost you as much from the bottom line, at least, just your resources, which I know the HBA is so charitable anyway. So there's so many causes that they can be involved in. But I really do think at the end of the day, when the leaders decide they're going to make it a fun culture and we're going to have a great time here, it does really set the tone for everyone to kind of get behind that. And if you say, I'll give you $5 to figure out how to have fun tomorrow, somebody will figure out that solution. They will. This is a pretty resourceful crowd.
Yeah, and it definitely takes great leaders to lead through tough times. It's easy when things are great, right? Like it's almost like all the ships float when the water rises, but when the tide goes out, suddenly, how do we navigate it? And it does take great leadership. So Michelle, with your company, you concentrate on making sure that leaders have all the tools and they're developed to lead their teams. So it's specifically, I know you have the 12-month leadership development program. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that? What does it entail and what can people expect when they go through that program with you?
Thank you. I will say that it's so easy for leaders to get caught up, kind of like we talked about early on, to kind of get in that scarcity mode, to get in that fear of how are we going to fix this? What are we going to do? Maybe even corporate's coming down on them and they are feeling that pressure. As long as you're feeling that pressure, you're not going to really be able to accomplish what you want. So really being able to make that pivot in your mindset is critically important. And so working through pivots and working through changes and how to take control of being strategic and resourceful again is what I mostly focus on for the year-long program. And then we deep dive into all of the different components. I have 6 leadership attributes that I have people focus on in terms of deciding where they want to grow. I have the 5 culture attributes that I have them work on as well to become aware of in their culture and what kinds of things they can improve upon. And from there, we deep dive into confidence and communication, how to hire people really well, and how to retain them and onboard them well. How do we manage our time? How do we make the most strategic decisions right now versus the quick, easy ones that might just be a Band-Aid versus solving problems? So over the course of a year, we pick one topic per month and we just do a deep dive into that. And over that year, they're going to see such empowering change. They will work together with me and they will work together in small groups of their peers so that we can maximize that growth.
I just want to give a little endorsement to Michelle because I know she's so humble. She's never going to express this, but she took it from a company of 0 sales to $85 million in sales and then sold it in a relatively short period of time to the biggest home builder in the country, D.R. Horton. I mean, that's a monumental task. I mean, kudos to that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when she's providing this, leadership coaching and development, she comes with a great success story. And this is not something she backed into. This is something that is a culmination of all her success. And I know her as a person. She has a great character along with this, was obviously the great business acumen and that entrepreneurial spirit. One thing I do want to ask you about is you come with the name Strive Leadership Development. And how'd you come with that name? And particularly the word strive, I see you have a definition here. Strive is to devote serious effort or energy in order to achieve a goal. So with that basis, expound on that.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked because a lot of people have challenged me actually on that name, because strive insinuates that there's not a goal, that we're not going to get there. And
Right.
that we're and the truth is there isn't. We all have many goals, and every time we create them, we're going to have new ones. We're constantly growing, and we're all works in progress all the time. So for me, it is a constant evolution toward becoming more of who we can become. And that's why I strive. And there's not a destination. We're going to keep on going until we're not here anymore. And that's kind of my theory behind that. But I really appreciate you saying that, John. It means so much coming from you. And I will tell you, the reason I started this company is because the pieces that I loved the most about running a home building company had mostly to do with developing the people and working with people to help them become whoever they wanted to become, whatever their idea of success is, wherever they want to go, I want to help them to get there. And that's why I started Strive. So I appreciate you saying that.
And based on our conversation today, expressing the importance of your network and your community and your relationships, that definition to devote serious effort or energy in order to achieve a goal, I think you can almost expound on that word energy to synergy. I think we bring that people together, that synergy of combining those efforts to achieve a better goal, and the sum of the parts is even greater. I think you are the epitome of using that synergy to create that energy to achieve those goals that you strive for.
That is amazing, John. No wonder you're so successful.
It's people like you that have been teaching me, actually.
That is amazing. Yes, I'm gonna change that today.
There you go. Giving you some actionable ideas already.
Right. I love it.
You bring up important factor of developing leaders in the home building company. So sometimes I think they really are like in a scramble kind of a mode, especially when things are changing really rapidly, like they are right now. And it's like all people development goes out the window, right? Like we're just almost kind of like trying to build the next ship to jump onto the next ship as our own ship is sinking, that survival mode. But sometimes you do need to slow down in order to speed up. And I think that can be really, really challenging for most home builders. So what advice can you give to a home builder going through the current market right now? And why should they really invest their money in people development where it seems like everybody around them are kind of like cutting costs?
Yes, no, absolutely. And here's what I like to say. If you are under pressure and you are feeling that stress and you are operating and fueling yourself with all of that sort of negative energy, you while you may be getting productivity, while you may be accomplishing some tasks, you're not bringing your best. You're not bringing your best to your people, and you're certainly not going to get your ultimate best outcomes that could be available to you. So you're right, just stop and take a breath, and let's just really think about this strategically and pull yourself back in together so that you can really think about, where are we going? What are the objectives and priorities here? And what will it take to get there? And while there may be obstacles in the way, there are always ways to overcome each of the small obstacles. Once you break it all down into the little pieces, it's really a lot easier than we think. But fueling ourselves with a much more positive fuel is what's going to take us there. That's what's going to get us there. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the funny thing I hear often is when people say, well, we just don't have time for that right now. Well, to me, the whole point of this is to show you how you can find the time, you can reprioritize. And I'll tell you, anybody who's gone through my time management month, which is coming up actually next month, they save anywhere from 3 to 8 hours a week. So I give them back far more time than they ever are going to use to learn the concepts that they need. And they get that back forever, especially when you have now this tool that you're able to implement for yourself for the rest of your career and in the rest of your life.
100%. Sometimes you need that mentor or a coach to walk you through, to show you the way to a shortcut. So speaking of mentorship, Michelle, are there any mentors in your life that you yourself lean on in order to get you to where you are now? And as you grow your career, who are some of the people that you follow?
That is a fantastic question. And I think the best way to answer it is that I've had a lot of different mentors through my life at different times when it's been appropriate and necessary for me. But I had an amazing female who was a mentor to me, who really gave me a lot of opportunities and saw something in me early on. And without her, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. But luckily, this industry is filled with so many amazing mentors, and I am constantly being influenced by all of them. And I think even today, I look at John. John was somebody I saw as a very successful person to learn from early on in his career and in mine. And now I see him as an entirely different type of influence today from what he has accomplished and what I am looking for and want to be inspired by. So I just think our mentors are around us all the time. And I like to be inspired by so many different people in different areas.
Being part of your podcast, Work in Progress, and as much as you give me all these accolades, we are all a work in process. Maybe you can allude a little bit to that whole idea of the work in process and how it's a continuous, process over your career.
Yeah, I know you and I talked about that a great deal, and I love the conversation we had surrounding it, which is just that the work in progress, by definition, in this industry especially, is our homes under construction. And they are an asset for us, but they aren't going to bring any revenue back until we sell them to somebody. And we can't sell them until they're finished. And so to me, we are constantly building ourselves and building the asset of ourselves. And we're constantly paying ourselves back over time, but it never ends. We're not ever going to not be a work in progress. But we have to keep investing in ourselves in order to be able to give more back to ourselves and to others and the community. And so to me, we're a constant work in progress. And that's what I like to talk about, that no matter what you've succeeded in your life and done, whatever you've achieved, if you hit that one goal, kind of like what we talked about earlier with Strive, it doesn't mean anything. We're usually not done yet. We're going to keep on moving on to the next thing.
There's another goal.
Yes. And it doesn't mean we're perfect yet. We haven't reached some destination. We still have now new things to work on and grow. And that's the exciting part, right? That's why we're here. And I think that's what's exciting about life. And if you can do that and have fun all at the same time, bonus. Like, isn't that the best?
And so, Michelle, you mentioned mentorship. And so I don't have any issues now coming up to people and reaching out to people that I admired and stalking them to literally be like, hey, I want to learn from you.
I pay her to stalk.
Do you have any tips for people who are maybe just starting their careers, or maybe they're not as comfortable asking for that mentor? Like, how do I find somebody first? And then how do I approach them and be like, hey, do you mind mentoring me?
Yeah, great question. I think that's probably one of the things that new people are afraid of most. And really, first of all, I will share with those people who might be afraid to do that, that anyone who would be asked to be a mentor or to teach, most anyone would be honored at that idea and loves that somebody was appreciating and noticing that. So I think that first and foremost, when you can go in realizing that this person's probably going to be thrilled that you are asking them, that already helps you hopefully feel a little bit better about it. But I think it starts with you too, identifying what it is in what area you want to grow in. What do you want to learn more about? Where have you recognized are your areas where you need to grow in order to get to the next level? And then see those people who have done that, who have accomplished that, who have gotten to that point already, and reach out to them and talk to them about that. To be honest, it's okay to just say, hey, I really admire that you have accomplished all of this, and it's an area that I would love to grow in. So how could we work together? How could I help? How could I learn from you more? And I think that in itself is such a great way to get started. And don't wait, do it.
You've coached many people over your career and now in your new company. So what's the typical profile, the type of leader or person that you're coaching? And then what are usually their most common areas of improvement that you need to help them with?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. I work with companies from the frontline managers who maybe are even new and haven't really had a lot of resources or support or training quite yet. And so this comes in really perfect timing for them as they're beginning a new career. The next level would be somebody who's been promoted, but really is not comfortable in those shoes yet and is trying to figure it out. And then I have kind of that top level of somebody who says, I have really figured out what I'm doing and I'm ready for the next level. And I want to know what's limiting me and how I need to get there. So to me, I'm working with anyone in those groups, and all of them can benefit from what I'm working on each day. Some of them are struggling with work-life balance. Mm-hmm. And we start with just defining what do you even mean by work-life balance?
So Michelle, is there anything that we haven't asked you today that you would like our listeners to know about you or your company?
Well, thanks for asking. I think that the message I want to get across is that leadership is something that anybody can be developed into. It is not something you're born with. You can develop the traits to get where you want to go, to really accomplish anything that you want in your career and in your life. And that's what I want to help show people every single day. But my company basically works with companies to help support, grow all of their leaders. So the more people who are involved, the more they're all speaking the same language, and it has an opportunity to just grow that much more, that multiplier effect when everybody's kind of working together toward the same goal and following that same path. So thanks for asking. That is probably the message I really want to make sure everybody understands, is when you can find someone else to do it with, that peer group helps you just take it to the next level.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. If somebody wants to connect with you, what's the best way to learn more about your company? Is there a specific social media where you spend most of your time? If somebody wants to reach out, what's the best way?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn a lot as Strive Leadership Development. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, and then they can go to my website, striveleadershipdevelopment.com.
Great. So we will make sure to link all of that in the show notes. I'll also link Michelle's podcast in the show notes, because you guys, John was actually recently a guest on her show, so you can catch up there as well. And we're really excited to have you on today's show, share your story. I think there's so many home builders out there who need to invest in leadership development and self-development, especially as we go through this rocky time, so that we don't just survive, but truly come out as a thriving individuals and as a thriving company. So thank you so much, Michelle, for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me, both of you. It's been my pleasure.
We'll talk to you very soon.
Really enjoyed talking to you. Bye.
Bye.